Since there is absolutely no possibility that this video is gonna turn out anything else than super long, I think it's okay if I take a few minutes to actually make a proper intro, because I have to just explain a few things beforehand. Like for example the fact that this review will be done in one take. I don't want to make it super detailed though, because with 8 headphones this would just explode in terms of length and I don't want to do this to you. The initial plan though was to make actually 8 separate reviews for all of these and then make the big comparison, but I thought 8 separate reviews along with the big conclusion in a short period of time would be just too much. So there will be I would say information rich enough comparison here. I don't want to go into all the details, like go into showing the apps and such that some of them offer. I will mention it and I will talk about the functionality, but the main parts will be the following 5. The first one is an overview of all of these, then the second one is comfort, then the sound, and then the active noise cancelling. I think that is good enough. I will definitely give you more than enough information, and of course, since it is a headphone, I just have to point that out. It is kind of subjective. I try to do my testing as good as possible, check them as much, and that's also why I have some time constraints and couldn't make 8 separate reviews, because I tested them way too long. And I also tried to improve the quality because I got a new lens and some lighting, so I hope that you can see the things better. But this is pretty much already it. I have to say the one thing, there is no perfect active noise cancelling headphone. There is no perfect one that just covers everything. Some have a good sound but maybe not the best noise cancelling, great comfort but maybe not the best sound, and so on. You have to kind of pick your poison. I did not find the perfect one. I found some good ones, and what I actually don't want to do this time is have a proper rating in terms of which is the best and the worst in every category, but I have some main categories. So one that is absolutely recommendable, then maybe still good enough but maybe not so great. So I hope this will be good enough, so let's get into it. And this is my new camera, at least the lens, and it seems better than it did before. So let's start off with the first one. This is actually a little bit of an anomaly, because this is a headphone from the brand Teufel, which is a German company and usually doesn't sell, or people don't buy outside of Germany, but I'm just gonna cover it because otherwise it would mix up my whole notes. This one costs around 230 euros. Of course, like I said, all of them have active noise cancelling, all of them are over ear, and all of them of course are Bluetooth. So this is one of the first contenders. The next one will be the Bose, the Bowers & Wilkins, and yes, some mix-ups could happen throughout this long video. The Bowers & Wilkins PX costs roughly at around $399 or euros in this case, and it has an app, and it is definitely the kind of most high quality feeling one, at least from first experience, but I will talk about a little bit more about them after the whole overview. Now the next ones would be the Sennheiser Momentum Wireless. This is the second version, costs roughly $440. For some reason though, just 250 euros in Germany. So maybe different price, because I checked all prices on Amazon.com. I guess this is the most broad version to check the prices. So this one doesn't really have an app. You can use the Sennheiser Connect app, but yeah, it doesn't really do much, and you can't disable noise cancelling on these. Now the next one's JBL E65. These are actually pretty much the cheapest one at around $199 or 160 euros, just to cover that. The next one's Beats Studio 3 Wireless, cost around $300, or in Germany 300 euros, 350 euros, depending on which color you get. Then we have the Bose QC35 version 2. Don't really have to talk much about these. Then the Sennheiser PX C550. They are priced at around $380 or 280 euros, at least here. And then we have the Sony Hear.on 2, roughly at around 220 euros. I didn't really find the US price though. And in case you're wondering that one certain best headphone is missing, that's just because I don't think it is. And I didn't really want to have it in this comparison. Yeah. Hate before that. Okay, let's get into the first one. About the Teufel, I'm not the biggest fan of that design, because once on your head, and I will talk about it later in the comfort part, they look a little bit big, but otherwise they are foldable, which is definitely nice. They have a good padding here. Everything feels nice enough built. It's not the highest quality. I think they could maybe use some different materials that would just make it appear even more so luxurious, even though it has improved, I've heard from the previous model. Now, The padding is kind of big enough. I would still wish for it to be a little bit taller because my ears kind of seem to touch, but this is actually one of the better ones still. It's soft enough, thick enough, and the comfort is good. Your ears, of course, will warm up a little bit. We have touch controls. We don't have an app. You can lock these buttons, especially, I mean, not the buttons, but the touch controls, because by accident, sometimes when I adjust them, I mixed it up a little bit. So you can lock this with these two buttons. Otherwise, underneath here, let's get this out, and I don't have any nails. We have the micro USB port and the 3.5mm jack. I don't think this is a nice solution. I would kind of just like to rip this off, which I think I will do because it looks a little bit out of place. Then on this side we have the ANC button, and I have to say about the controls that I want to mention here in this part actually as well is that this is okay. I personally not a big fan of touch controls. I prefer proper buttons, especially if I use them maybe blindly or with gloves or something like that, which just happens, but otherwise it's fine. It has adjustments and all of this works fine. Now let's get into the Bowers & Wilkins PX. They feel a little bit more heavy, but they feel very premium because this has been done so nice. As you can see here, the wire is actually tucked inside here in this, and it feels high quality, really well done. Now the padding is weird because this looks quite thick, but it isn't, because as you can see, only this bit, a little bit give. But they feel sturdy, definitely very well built. I have to mention though that the ear cups are, even though they appear to be very thick, they have a very hard frame around and they don't really push too much in, and especially not to the sides. So once your ear is in, there will be some pressure just because it's quite hard. I know that a few people have an issue with that. I think I personally got used to that quite easy. It's definitely not the most comfortable one, but therefore the fit is very good, and we will see about the rest a little bit later. Now here we actually have very nice controls, because play and pause button along with the volume rocker. Here's the button to enable the noise cancelling and the on and off switch, along with, as you can see here at the bottom, this is actually already, yes, the only one with USB Type-C and the headphone jack. Other than that, they look nice, and especially on your head, but we will get to that a little bit later. They are rotatable in one direction. Okay, the next ones, Sennheiser Momentum Wireless. No padding, absolutely nothing at all, but it still works, and I see that my cam has a little bit of issues with the focus. Otherwise, ear cups are fine. Build quality seems fine. This is a little bit of a more, I would say, industrial design, but it works. The only thing that I think is weird that this actually, if you have them very small, would go over the headphones themselves, as you can see if I push it all the way, which is a little bit of a weird mechanism, but it works out quite fine. Other than that, ear cup, it's very soft, and that makes up for quite something because it's not the biggest one. I think actually all of them are a little bit too small when it comes to ear cups, besides the Bose. This is a minor complaint of mine. They are not rotatable, but they are foldable. Then controls. We have the on and off switch. We have the volume kind of rocker that also can be pushed to pause and play. Then headphone jack and the micro USB, along with this part here where I guess they kind of have the microphones sitting. This would be it. No. JBL E65. First of all, they are rotatable in one direction. You can also see which ear is which. The padding here is not thick, but it works out fine. Absolutely no problems at all. It looks quite nice, especially on your head. It's one of the most subtle ones. Build quality seems also quite good. It's not amazing, but for this price, I can't really expect much more. The only thing that I found to be annoying is that this mechanism is a little bit too loose. So sometimes if I just put it on my head, it did kind of adjust on its own. So this could be stiffer. Other than that, the ear cups could be bigger, because even though they are quite plush and they are quite thick, just because of the fact that they kind of sit around your ear all the time, after a little bit of a while, since it has a little bit more clamping force, did hurt my ears after a few hours. The initial response, especially if you have smaller ears or don't have an issue with touching, will be just fine. Now controls are actually one of my favorite ones, because you just slide this up to turn it on, and then we have, once again, buttons. I just prefer buttons because I could use this at work with gloves. Now, volume rocker, play and pause, and here we have the Bluetooth button and the noise cancelling button. You have to press that one for a second or such. Then headphone jack. So overall, this one for the price actually does quite a nice job. Now, the next ones, the Beats Studio 3 Wireless. They are foldable as well. Rotatable? No, but that's enough wiggle room. Padding? Not at that much, but it's good enough. Otherwise, in terms of controls, not really much, and this was actually a very confusing thing for me because we have an on and off switch here, we have touch controls, but not really touch controls, these are actual buttons. I'm not really sure what else to do because I actually never knew how to really properly turn on and off the noise cancelling. But here we have the 3.5mm jack and the micro USB. Build quality seems fine. For this price I would wish for something that feels a little bit more sturdy or rugged because it kinda clappers all the time. We have this and this didn't change, so this is okay. Stiff enough. Otherwise, ear cups. Now here's the thing, they kinda are a little bit shallow, which is the weird thing because once you have them on it feels like you have a pillow on your ears all the time, which is very comfortable at first, but it also kinda gives you no breathing space. So after a little bit of time they kinda heat up, but they are actually super soft and kinda big enough. A little bit more about that later on. Then we have the Bose QC35. Nice padding here, very nicely done. Also the rest is good. Build quality I guess is on a normal level because they don't feel extremely high quality and they do crackle also a little bit, but this is actually fine. Now in terms of controls, we have the on and off switch, and yes, once again buttons, super nice to see. So volume rocker once again with the play and pause, micro USB, headphone jack, and this is the button that can be actually arranged because you could use this for the voice assistant since the second version has Google Voice Assistant, but I just use it for A and C. Now what else to say? Yes, we have steps here. Also, they don't change. It is foldable. Is it rotatable? Yes, it is. So good job on that. Don't really have to get much into more of that. Now, the Sennheiser PXC550s. Let's talk about them. So these actually have one quite unique thing because once you do this, they turn on. And you even hear that, so you get a notification, but I want to leave them turned off here for right now. Now the padding, there is a lot, but it's a little bit on the stiffer side, which is okay. Now controls, and without turning them on, here they are. Here we have two steps for the noise cancellation, which is nice because I like that we have actual kind of a slider for the noise cancellation, even though I don't see a big issue. Once it's on and the maximum doesn't really change so much, then we have this button to change the different modes because this one has an app. And if you long press this, you can pair your device, micro USB, and the headphone jack, if that is the headphone jack, because it looks very thin. I guess it is. Not actually quite sure. And here we have something that I'm not quite sure what it is, because I don't think this is a button. It never did anything. Now, padding I've talked about. They are foldable. They are rotatable, obviously, since you hear that. Now the ear cups, you can maybe already see these. These are just not big enough. Once you have them on your ear, you kind of tuck your ear inside, which is okay. But I got a little bit claustrophobic out of it because yes, super soft and thick enough, but size-wise, I would just wish for more. This is a little bit of an anomaly when it comes to the comfort. I will talk a little bit more about that later. Otherwise, we have steps here, and this also didn't change. So good to see. Controls are otherwise though touch. Now, next one's Sony Hear.on 2, or also called the WHH900, if I didn't get that wrong. So these are available in multiple colors, a few of them also as well, but as you can see, I actually wanted black. But I had a black version already, but yeah. Build quality seems fine, actually doesn't creak that much or anything, so they did quite a good job on that. Now, they aren't fully rotatable, which is a little bit sad, but it's okay. What else? Yes, foldable. Let's actually turn off the Sennheiser here. And get back to the Sony. The padding here is super thick, as you can see. It's very soft though, and yes, the camera doesn't always want to focus, which was a little bit of an issue of mine. So sorry if you have some autofocus issues. I never used this lens before. Touch controls on the side. Button here to turn on the most important parts, because NC and ambient. Then of course the power button. Micro USB and the headphone jack. Enough wiggle room. Yeah, steps also stay like they are. Okay, that's it. Now I'd say we should already go to... No, let's actually check one thing about the apps. The Teufel has no app. The Bowers & Wilkins has an app, actually quite a good one. You have an equalizer, you have some extra settings, and actually a lot of different kinds of noise cancellation, because we have one for an airplane in different adjustment levels. Same goes for office and also for, I think it was work or something like that, or just home. Very flexible. The only thing that I have to point out that the noise cancelling actually diminishes the sound quite a lot. Especially if you have the highest noise cancelling mode on, which would be airplane with completely off, then you have the highest noise cancellation, but then the sound really suffers. Otherwise though, that's it. The Sennheiser, like I said, the Momentum Wireless don't have an app, not per se, but you can use the one from the PXC and it works, but you don't have full customizability. And this is the only one where you actually can't turn off noise cancellation, which I think is a little bit of a bummer. I just would have liked to have seen. JBL, no software. Beats, I don't think so. I didn't really try, didn't really care. Bose has a software. It gets the rudimentary stuff done because you can change what the button does, if it's the voice assistant or if it's for the noise cancelling and some extra options. The Sennheiser have, because here as well you have some different kind of options for the noise cancelling, strength, equalizer and such. And the Sony has an app as well. I personally would not really need any of those apps. The one for the Bow & Wilkins you definitely will need once to set up the noise cancelling. The Sony don't really need it because on the Sony, for example, you have this high quality mode and this high stability mode where you have better reception for the Bluetooth. But once you have high quality mode enabled, you can't use a lot of stuff anymore, like for example the equalizer and so on. So I actually found to be the best just not to do anything. So let's get into the comfort. And now I have a rating, and I want to start off actually with the most comfortable ones. First, the Bose QC35. And the only reason why they are the number one for me is just the fact that they have by far the biggest ear cups. And I just don't have the feeling, like I do on pretty much all of them, that they push onto my ear like the kind of things that you have your kids, your ears on. So just the most breathing space. They felt a little bit more comfortable. Also, they look decent enough on your head. The only thing that annoyed me a little bit because of the padding here, they kind of bounce on your head. So if I put them on the size that I want to, a little bit wider, so they are a bit of, they jump. This is a little bit too jumpy. So maybe make something a little bit softer, because comfort is good. They are soft enough. The pressuring force is also a little bit too loose almost though, because they have the kind of most loose fit and not super tight, but it's good enough since they are also kind of the most lightweight ones in terms of feel. But you could use these for a long period of time. I absolutely had no problems with these. So not the very best thing in terms of fit, but definitely in terms of comfort. Now the next thing, so the Bose stand out a little bit because they had the biggest ear cups. Now the next section would be the Teufel Real Blue, and here I know that would be great with taller ear cups, good depth. So good depth means that my ears have enough breathing space on this side, but if I put them on, the issue for me is just that at either on the top or the bottom, they kind of touch a little bit. It's not that they press or something like that, because your whole ear fits in, but I would wish just so much more relaxed or kind of free if it wouldn't be that. So 1 centimeter or maybe half a centimeter taller ear cups would make the comfort really great, because the clamping force has been done really good. It's not too much, but it's not enough. I mean, not too little. So these are actually one of the more comfortable ones for a longer period of time. A little bit of some getting used to is there, but otherwise this is kind of already second best. Now the next thing would be Sennheiser Momentum Wireless. I would wish for the ear cups to be bigger, but what they have is, I kind of would say, the most plush ear cups, because they are so soft, and even though they touch around your ear everywhere, it's so soft and kind of thick enough that they are very comfortable. Clamping force is, I would say, a little bit more loose than actually tight, but due to the super isolation and the great kind of molding on your ears due to the ear cups, which are absolutely great in terms of materials, they actually sit very well. A little bit small ear cups though, that's the only thing. Now then we have the Beats Studio. Here they are. And the great thing about these is once you put them on, you feel so nicely cushioned in, tucked into a ear pillow, because they are so soft. Like I said though, a little bit shallow. I would wish for some breathing space, because I think after a little bit of a longer time, you just feel a little bit kind of pushed in. Otherwise, clamping force is absolutely top. The ear cups are kind of big enough. They could be deeper though. That's the only thing, because otherwise they also look quite decent and they are very comfy. Now I have the JBL, like I said. The only thing is that they have a little bit more clamping force, and even though kind of similar to the Teufel, actually my old ears fit in, but they touch a little bit more, at least on one side, and this changes. So after a while it actually hurt my ears. But that's really after multiple hours. Yeah. Then I have the 3 anomalies. Let's start off with the Sennheiser. Like I said, small ear cups. And even though the ear cups, since they are kind of plush around inside your whole ear, will easily fit in, but you always feel the whole cushiony, padded stuff to touch all your ears around them. If you don't mind that at all, it's fine, because they are very comfortable everywhere. Here a little bit also more spring. But if you get used to that, which happens after a while, so they need kind of like some time to burn in on your head every time, like a minute or so. Then you feel, and then they are comfy, because once I used them for like 3 or 4 hours and they didn't hurt, because the fit is actually very good and the pressure was also very nice. Now, the next one's the PX. Now, like I said, very hard frame around the ear cups. And with almost no give here, they feel the hardest one on your head. But what they also do is they have kind of the most stable fit, because they have a lot of clamping force, not too much, but if your ear is once in, I have to still say a little bit bigger would have been nice, because sometimes it touches if I don't have them properly aligned in this angle. That there is no real padding on the top is okay, because they pretty much sit just by this. You don't actually would need this. They look subtle, I would say, as well. Very good passive noise isolation. I would say these have the best passive noise cancellation, but I will get into that later on in that part. But if you get used to them after a while, I actually think they can be very comfortable, but I don't think it will be the case for everyone, because I know a few people that just said they are too hard. I could maybe see past that. Now the last anomaly, Sony Hear.on 2. And why anomaly here? Well, because when I put them on and I squeeze them, and I don't know if the camera can pick this up, they always kind of are like a air pump, and this feels so weird, because you can hear some crackling inside of it, just the air, and this just feels weird, because otherwise these are actually super comfy, because top super soft and thick, as we have seen. Also the ear cups, these are actually one of the few ones that are also big enough, so it's not on a level of the 1000Xs, they were just more comfortable, but these do a really nice job if you are okay with that. What they do though is, since they are very sealed around your ears will definitely get a little bit warmer than on some others, but that's actually the case here for most, besides the Bose and maybe the Teufel, because they have the deeper ear pads, but they are actually very comfy. They look a little bit more bulky though. So the categories were, like I said, Bose due to the biggest ear cups. Then I had one separate kind of part where the 3 are the Teufel Real Blue, the Sennheiser Momentum Wireless, and the Beat Studio. This was kind of the mid tier in terms of comfort. Then the GBL, it's separate, and the 3 anomalies, where I just don't know how to put it for everyone, because the Sennheiser will be very comfortable, but not for everyone, especially people who don't like the touching. The same thing for the Bowen Wilkins. Whoever doesn't like the hardness on your head, that will be the thing. And the weird thing of the Sony is the squishy part. Now let's actually talk about the noise cancellation first, because I want to talk about the sound a little bit later on, because that's still very important for me. Now, noise cancellation. The best noise cancellation, the 2 are the Bose and the Bowen Wilkins, but only on the maximum level. So I would say overall, if you want the best possible noise cancellation where nothing else gets really compromised, I would say go for the Bose, because they have a very good, I would say, above average passive noise cancellation and really good active noise cancellation, because it filtered out. This is actually one thing that all of them do well. If you are, for example, in a train, the humming noise, the constant deep hum or machine sound, all of them filter that out very easily. But what the Bose do very good, as some others ones as well, it filters out the higher frequencies a lot more. So what pretty much none of them really do is filter voices. That's just something that noise cancellation can't do, because it's not fast enough. But for example, on a train, then the clickety-click of the trains or something like that. This is something that these do very, very subtle. You hear it a little bit, but just noise cancellation, I would say these do pretty much the best job. Now, the Bowen Wilkins have the issue though that the sound diminishes quite a lot. So once you have them on, since they have a really good passive noise cancellation, and you also hear already everything very muffled, with the noise cancellation in the airplane mode, they have almost kind of the best noise cancellation, because I heard even less of the highs, a little bit, just a tiny little bit, compared to the Bose. But with that mode, the sound is just not good. That's why it's definitely not on the level of those ones, because otherwise, if you use a lower noise cancellation, so a little bit of a weaker one, then it's kind of more mid-tier where the sound doesn't suffer so much. But that's definitely something to point out. But still, just noise cancellation on its own is great. Now the next ones would be the Sennheiser PXC. They have quite a good, but I would say maybe just average passive noise cancellation. Now the active noise cancellation is also really good, but it's a noticeable step, because here, for example, I wrote down good bass. No, that's for the, no, yeah. So it filters out the bass and the mids very good, but the highs are muffled, but you can hear them. So if you have any sort of music playing, I think actually all of them are good enough, unless you maybe listen super with low volume. But these, very good noise cancellation, because the only thing that you heard a little bit more was the clickety-clack from the train, but it was very nicely muffled and it never really got bothered, because some pronounce it a little bit more unfiltered, and this muffled makes up for that. Now the next ones, actually to my surprise, the JBL E65, because they have also an amazing, well, for this price range, of course, for what they are, passive noise cancellation, because everything is super muffled, you are very sealed away, and the noise cancellation was also very good. I had a note, it says more audible white noise. Yeah, that was the one thing, because even though the noise cancellation is very good in terms of highs, mids and bass, the hum and so on is away, you hear of course a little bit of the clickety-clack, which they just can't quite avoid, but you heard by far the most white noise, the noise that just comes along with all of them, but this one was audible. With music, of course, no issue anymore. The next one's Sony Hear.on 2. The problem with the Sony Hear.on 2 is that, I wrote that down, lets you hear more highs through, and it's less muffled, so you kind of hear the clickety-clack a little bit more open. But what these have is actually a very nice option, because if you have the noise cancellation turned on and someone comes up to you and they want to hear them, you just have your ear on this, and it kind of enables an ambient mode where you hear voices even better, and it also tunes down the volume quite enough. So this is definitely a very handy feature. I have to point out the one thing. Whenever I turned off noise cancellation off on these, after like half a minute, I got some odd crackling sounds and so on. So I'm not quite sure what it is, because I let them replaced already. Oh, this is a replacement, and the first one had that as well. So I'm not quite sure what that is about. The noise cancellation, I would say, is just still not the best one. It's still on the lower end, because humming and so on is away, but you hear a little bit more mids and highs. So the clickety-clack seems less filtered. Now then, the Bose Studio 3, which I have to say actually don't really have all that good of a noise cancellation, since they have a quite good passive noise cancellation, but not the best one. These actually disappointed me a little bit, so I would have wished for more here. So that's kind of the third region. And then we have the two with the kind of weakest ones, because the Sennheiser Momentum Wireless, they have a very weak wind filter, because in a train or wherever you have a lot of wind, this didn't get filtered out so much, and it's also not a great. Of course, the humming as well and such machinery work is filtered as well, but otherwise quite a weak noise cancellation. And even though I said something different in my review, or I think I've said it somewhere else, is the noise cancellation of the Teufel is pretty much the weakest one. Also good enough for the basics like the hum, but especially the clickety-clack of the train was almost not filtered, at least a little bit muffled and just a little bit filtered, but the weakest one. So here the main sections are the Bose and the PX have the best cancellation, so that's the first level. Then the Sennheiser and the JBL, that's kind of the second tier. Third tier would have been the Sony, along with the Beat Studio. Even, yeah, the Sony are a little bit better. And then we have the Sennheiser Momentum along with the Teufel. So where are we? At around 30 minutes. I actually thought this would be even longer, but we are still not done. Okay, so let's talk about the sound. So my favorite in terms of sound is the PX, and some people might disagree with them because I've heard some people saying that they preferred actually the Sonys, but the Sonys are also very good. So I have to say, there are actually only 3, maybe let's say 4 that passed my good enough audio tests. Those would be just real quick: the Bow & Wilkins, the Sony Hear.on 2, the Teufel, and with the last one, this is a little bit debatable, would be the Bose. Why? First of all, the PX is the most loud one, the loudest one of all of them. but that's also a little bit of a thing. In Europe, we have this kind of limit at 85 dB, and which should actually lead to everyone being just the same loudness, but these are louder, and these are loud enough for me. I know I listen very loud, and most people will be fine with all of them, but for me, there were just few that just didn't reach the volume that I wanted. These do, and they have a very good, strong sound. You have the equalizer that I didn't really need, but I think they just had the kind of most still audiophile fun sounded signature, because good bass, good highs, the clarity was there. Of course, all of them are closed back, so you won't get a wide soundstage on either one, but this one just felt the most high quality in terms of sound for me. Like I said, with the noise cancellation, this is not quite the case anymore. Now the next ones in terms of sound already would be the Sony, the hear.on 2. And yes, I prefer these over the 1000X M2. And someone told me it's just because they bumped up the highs a little bit more. That's not it. It's not just the highs, because he tried to explain that it's somewhere in the graph where they kind of boost something. That's why I prefer them. That's not the case. It's the quality for me that just improved or is better, because they are, for a Sony headphone, almost neutral. The bass is there, and it's a nice kind of punchy bass, especially if you have them wired with a good amp. You actually get some really punchy bass, and the bass is good. The mids are solid, and the highs are, for one of these Bluetooth headphones, actually quite pronounced. And this is kind of the best sound in some regards. There are some minor issues where I just preferred the PX even a little bit more, but best default sound signature actually is the Sony. Most kind of clarity, a nice detailed bass, and I'm just talking about Bluetooth headphones. Definitely wired ones will achieve even more so, but these almost neutral actually satisfied me a lot, and the volume was good enough. It was one of the louder ones. At first I actually thought otherwise, but once I tried the other ones I noticed that these were even worse. Now Sony, the Teufel Real Blue, these have kind of the most pronounced or most tight upper or mid bass. They don't really go super low, like none of them do, but they have a really punchy bass. But it's, for some people, a little bit too strong. And I said this in my review already, which I didn't release in English. But if you maybe take off like 2 or 3, maybe sometimes 4 dB on the bass, on the mid end or the lower end, then it's not quite as thick anymore, because the sound is definitely warm, but it just can be too much in bass. Sometimes I get that, but you can easily fix that, because take off bass, because I rather take away bass, because that's something easy to do without losing quality, instead of having to push bass on some headphones, which I personally don't really do so much. The high is also quite clear, not as pronounced as on the Sony, but a good, very nice balanced sound. Overall also loud enough. So these are the 3 that get the volume along with the Sony, but the first 3, like I said, the Sony, the Wilkins and the Teufel, are the only ones where I'm actually fully satisfied with the sound for a Bluetooth headphone. They gave me the volume, they gave me the overall balance, and I can adjust some things in the equalizer if I need to. But those fully satisfied me. Now the Bose, they have one thing that I'm just not 100% sure about. First of all, the volume. Yes, loud enough, absolutely. This is also one of the louder ones. But the sound felt a little bit lower bitrate kind of, because it felt like everything else I used with 320k, for example, and these ones I used just with 128 or 192. So they sounded a little bit lower quality, a little bit more grainy, not quite as clear. But the sound signature I actually found quite good. Someone said too much bass, too fat, he didn't like it. Personally didn't see that so much, especially from the other ones that I've tried, not really considering here. The balance was actually fairly fine. So bass, like I said, nothing is really good in terms of overall quality, so the highs could be clearer, the mids could be a little bit maybe more detailed or something like that, and the bass could be tighter or something like that. But the sound signature really makes up for a lot. Of course, you can tweak that on all of these in some way or the other. But just default, the sound is decent. Some people say they don't sound good at all. I don't think they sound high quality, but let's just see that if you are on the go, you don't really check the minute details, you go into everything. Because, for example, when I had these at work to try them out, I don't really focus on the sound quality per se. And then for me, it's a little bit more important to have a good overall sound, so that the balance is quite fine, that the signature is pleasing, and it doesn't sound super tight or super muffled and so on. And this it still achieves. Now the next one's the Sennheiser PXC. Now the Sennheiser, like the rest from now on, are just not loud enough for me. They are good and they sound actually very high quality. If I would just get a little bit more volume out of these, which with a headphone jack I could do, then these would be way higher because they have a very audiophile kind of sound if you want it with the equalizer and so on. But for me, if I can't reach the volume that I want, I just don't get the rest, because also soundstage is on a good level and the highs, they are high quality, the mids and the bass, maybe not the tightest bass, maybe not the most pronounced bass, but actually fairly well balanced throughout everything. Of course, none of them really neutral. All of them are kind of like Bluetooth sounded, and I'm not quite sure what else to say, but all of them have this very distinctive sound where they just push the mids or the bass a lot, recess the mids and push the highs, even though most actually don't push the highs enough, which I think the Bowers did very, very nice. But these, if you don't listen very loud, are actually really good, especially also for the price. Now the next ones, the Beats. They actually have a really good sound signature, a very nice medium soundstage, but a good balance. Because I would have expected these to sound way too bassy, and no, they didn't. I would have expected to have no highs or so, but everything actually really nicely done. The main issue for me, not loud. These were actually, I think, the weakest one in terms of overall volume, along with the JBL, I think so, which was a little bit of a bummer, and I actually said that already. The Bose, for example, just real quick, I said good volume, solid sound, but kind of tinny. For the Teufel, I said loud enough, great, fun sounded. For the Sony, I said good volume, almost neutral. For the Beats, I said not quite loud enough, but good sound. So overall, they did a quite nice, fairly balanced sound. And this, if you want a good sound, because this is not the Beats from, I think, the past anymore. I just briefly tried one of you again. So I would have been okay with the sound with louder. Then Sennheiser Momentum. It says everything what I said, not quite loud, quite warm. So these are noticeably warmer than the rest, but they are just not loud enough for me. If that's not a concern for you, they sounded also very nice, but I just don't see a lot of reason to buy these over the PXC. The PXC overall do a just better job. And then the JBL, they are the quietest ones. These are the quietest ones. Okay sound. They have actually a pleasing sound because I've used them at work, and like I said, when you don't focus on sound quality themselves or itself, these actually do a totally fine job. And I liked how subtle they are on your head. They are the cheapest ones and they have a very good noise cancellation. So overall they did actually give me what I would want to, if just a little bit more volume. Now let's cover all of these and I will give you a quick overview of what I think of each one and if I can recommend it or not. So the Teufel, 230 euros. Can I recommend them? Yes. If you want really good sound, if you want a really nice comfort, if you want a little bit more bass, kind of fun sound, or if you want to get it away, just take it off. These absolutely deliver, besides the fact that the noise cancellation is kind of the weakest one in this department. But they are for comfort and sound. And my nose is running a little bit. After all, it's a little bit cold here. So definitely recommended. Because they do a very, very solid overall job. They don't really disappoint in any regard. Like I said, the noise cancellation, if you just care about the humming noise, because I don't think the other sounds are really that important if you are in a train with some music playing, it's not really that important. But if you put much weight on the noise cancelling, then these are not it. Now, the Bowers & Wilkins, 400 is a lot, and what you will just have to do before you buy them, or maybe if you can return them, you have to check the comfort, because sound-wise, total go. Unless you want the highest, the best noise cancellation, because then they suffer noticeably. The rest really doesn't suffer noticeable, not significant enough to mention, but at around 400 they're also the most expensive ones. I think you get the most high quality sound with a nice app that works out good. The comfort is just that where I'm not quite so sure, because they have a good volume, the good sound signature, and the ANC is strong, but the comfort, it really depends if it's good enough for you. I'm not quite sure, because I used them for so long and sometimes okay with it, especially if I use them for longer. But especially the first moment comfort is not that great. So what you shouldn't do in your store, if you try them, just try them for a minute and say immediately no, because that's what my brother did. He put them on and said, oh, that's not comfortable. Give them a few minutes to sit and rest and get a little bit familiar to it. Okay, the next ones. Sennheiser Momentum. pretty much a clear no, just because they are also the oldest ones, and I kind of regret getting these for the comparison. I should have gotten something different, because since we have the PXE that just do everything better, I don't see much reason. They sound good, and if you get them for a lower price, why not? But especially in the US with 440, it just doesn't make so much sense. JBL, they have one thing going for it, it's the low price. $200, 160 euros. They still offer a good enough comfort, even though maybe not for hours and hours and hours, if you are maybe a little bit more sensitive to that, but a very subtle feel. The build quality is good. I really like the controls, and the sound signature on its own was good. The sound quality was solid enough for these kind of, because considering that it's 100 or even more so cheaper than the rest, the sound is very, very comparable, because especially the mid tier is kind of very close together. Just not quite loud. But for the price, they do a very nice balanced job. The Beats, I have a harder time recommending it just because of the price of around $300 or $350 or euros. They just don't do anything that the others don't do better or are maybe cheaper, because yes, great comfort, they look quite good. The noise cancelling though is a little bit weak, and the sound is just not loud enough. But comfort is very nice. Controls are okay, because after all, kind of proper buttons at least. And the sound itself was also really nice. But a little bit expensive for what they are. The Bose, can I recommend them? $350, often on sale for maybe $280, $300. Yes. Why? Great comfort. Especially this is the the lightest one, the one that feels the most subtle on your head in some way. And you get enough volume, you get the best noise cancellation, and you just get an overall still good enough sound. Absolutely, totally. And that's why. It's not perfect, definitely, none of them is, but I still can recommend these. Yep. PX, priced at around $380, is a little bit much in terms of dollars. $280 in euro is actually already way better, because very nice comfort if you get used to the feeling of having them around your ear, but not with any space. The comfort though is very good though. Controls are fine. I'm okay with the touch controls. I'm not a big fan. I prefer buttons. The noise cancellation is very strong. The sound quality is really good. It's just not really loud, but for the price, I can definitely recommend them as well, if that's maybe something that you're looking for, because they do a solid job. Sony, well, the Sony. Yeah, for $220 I can recommend them, because they are, after all, besides the weird noise, quite comfy, especially if you are not so sensitive like I am. I'm a little bit over the top in this regard here. They offer kind of, especially in this price range, since they are noticeably cheaper than the Bauer & Wilkins, a really good sound. Very nice and neutral, kind of almost airy and open, high quality, with some extra options and settings. The noise cancelling is a little bit on the weaker side, and they look a little bit too bulky for me, but yep, they do a really nice job. Now about battery life, I can't really tell you so much about that, because I had like about a month for all of these, and I couldn't focus on each one which I used how long, so I tested them all the time. So this is actually something that I can't tell you. What I also don't want to go into, because no one seems to ever care, is the sound with the headphone jack, because let's just see that what it is. You will use the 90% with Bluetooth anyway, so headphone jack sound doesn't really matter. Of course, whenever you have a good amp or something like that, it will improve, and then you will also always get the volume that you need. But that is it. I covered it in roughly about 43 minutes. It was very long, but after all, 8 headphones, and if I would have had made 8 separate reviews of these headphones, it would have been even longer. So I hope this was helpful for you. So which one would I pick? For the best sound, if comfort wouldn't be an issue, I think still the Bose, the Bauer & Wilkins, because I don't really care so much for the diminishing quality for the noise cancelling, because I can take a lower tier of noise cancellation and still get a good sound out of it. But just in terms of value and what they actually do, I think the Teufel amp, which you can't really buy for most people, and the Sony are doing a very nice balance job, because priced lower than some of these, they offer a very good sound. A little bit on the weaker side for the noise cancellation, but a good noise cancellation. Like I said, the Bose, solid buy for people who want a very good comfort and noise cancellation. The Sennheiser, also kind of that, especially if you get them cheaper. And kind of for really good value, the JBL are things here. So the only two that I can really recommend, I don't see any necessity for it, are the Beats and the Sennheiser Momentum 2. That's it. If you have any further questions, leave them down below. And if you want more Bluetooth headsets with noise cancellation or just Bluetooth headsets in the future, just leave me comments down below and maybe what ones. Because I wanted to actually cover even more, but I couldn't get more than these. And big thanks to Cyberport, because I think I got like 6 from them. So without that, it wouldn't have been possible. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 6. And I will try to cover a few more, because I still am looking for the one and only thing. I heard that the Kefs seem to be very good, but I can't judge these since I have no access to them. But that's it. Actually, the Kef should be the best I've heard in terms of comfort, sound, and so on. Okay, let's finish this off. Bye.